Oi, Ronan, tá me ouvindo?
Hi there.
Hi, Janet.
Hi, how are ya?
Oh, fine, thanks. We are waiting for the rest of people to come in, okay?
No worries, my friend.
I will call him. Wait a minute.
I know, it's like coffee is my favorite elixir these days. It's like I so enjoy sharing and speaking to so many students online, but I'm sure you kind of have that same thing where your day is just ever and ever stacked up with humans in a virtual setting. I can't wait to really be in person with people, you know?
Oh, yes. I'm very tired to talk to everybody using.
Me too. I'm like,
Hi, Janet.
I want to like share and like go toast and
Oh.
cheers and things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gracious. Hi.
Hi, Janet. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Good. How is Nashville?
You know, it's like we've had, you know, it's like everywhere else. It's like a year ago there were tornadoes and then the world shut down and then there was a bomber on New Year's Day and then it's like there were floods 2 weeks ago. So welcome to Nashville because
Okay.
it's gorgeous here today, but it's been weird. It's been like, is everybody okay? Like just calm down. But yeah, just weird. I mean, how about you guys where you are? Are you still you're in Austin? Is that where you are?
No, I'm in Toronto.
You're Toronto. Okay.
Yeah. And Celso is in Brazil.
In Brazil, in a very, very hot place.
I love hot. I am not a fan of cold. So, Evandro, you can keep your Toronto cold winters. I mean, it's like I'm good for one snow, and then, yep, that's all I need. I need to see it once a year, and then back to 70 and above. So, I would like Brazil. I am quite certain.
Oh, yes. If you like hot places, you like here a lot.
Perfect. One of the ways that I know the topic is space exploration. I'm going to talk about some missions, but then I'm going to also talk about space exploration in the way that they need to explore where they want their space careers to go. And then I'm going to give tons of examples of things they may or may not have thought about, sort of this new space, this kind of like renaissance of space exploration and the rise of civilian and commercial space, that really it's anybody's oyster and whatever you can actually get out there and create. So that's going to be the gist of my talk, and I'm hoping that's okay for this morning or this afternoon. I mean,
Okay. Let's wait for the people. I think more people is coming.
Okay.
Oh, my
Arthur
is right.
Hi, Janet. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I've started to do, since again it's all social distancing, is like live long and prosper. So I know you're a Star Trek fan, but I figured this is the perfect like social distanced handshake from now on. Yeah. So oh, you got to do something. Yeah, exactly. Spock lives. All right. So.
Okay.
We've still got 6 minutes.
We have 6 minutes.
Yes, It's like I give grace all the time. It's like if everybody is like me, it's like you're either just hopping off your previous call or want to get a snack or your 4th cup of coffee, whatever that looks like.
Don't worry. If you build, they will come.
That's right.
Oh, I'll take some coffee.
Oh, there you go. See, it's a good idea. I think so. I recommend it.
Well, you just speak with your dog today?
Yes. It's like, oh, I forgot which cup I had. I won't raise that up too high. I didn't even look. It's like I just grabbed the first clean cup out of the thing. Yeah. There are days that it's like here in the last year, it's been, yeah, some days I have only spoken to my dog. Early on, it was so weird, right? Like my husband was shut down, I was shut down. And then when my husband was able to go back, and very limited, and how his office was running, it's like he would come home and I would just be a motor mouth, like, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, have you not talked to anybody? He's like, nobody but the puppies. So I'll keep that down low. So very funny.
You are so funny. I check some videos from you on YouTube, your in your channel, and I start to show to my daughter. Oh, you are a big reference for for her. It's so funny. I like it.
How old is your daughter?
She's six
Ah,
years.
that's kind of like, I will tell you that sort of like anywhere from like 0 to 12 has been kind of my audience for a long time. And probably really that kind of 6-year-old to 12-year-old, depending on where we sort of, aim the content at. But yeah, I'm just a big old nerdy space loving goofball pretty much. But it's super fun.
Probably.
It's trying to find, like this afternoon, I'll be with kids your daughter's age, and we're going to be doing a solar system scavenger hunt. So I will tell them about, like, we'll start at the sun, and then it's like, get up from your computers, go run around, bring something back that, is the color of the sun, is a star. What can you find that looks like the sun? So I've had kids do everything from bring a blanket, and I'm like, a blanket? It's like, because the sun keeps us warm. I'm like, bam, you get 10 points. And it is so much fun because everybody gets to, like, even if they're not trying that hard, I try to keep encouraging until they come up with, then it's like what was I talking about? I was talking about Pluto, it pretty much being an ice planet, and a kid actually brought back a cup of ice. So I thought at least on that kind of younger thing, they were getting at least the concepts. And so I'd like to build in a lot of fun so that there isn't a barrier when they're, what I mean, as they learn, they're like, I remember science being a lot of fun. So there isn't that, oh, it's serious, it's dry, I won't enjoy it. So that's a bit of my modus operandi. Hi, guys. See people coming in. Welcome, everybody. We are nearly there. We are 2 minutes away. Even though I am from the southern part of the United States, sometimes I talk entirely too fast. So if anyone needs me to go, just wave your hand and go, Janet, slow down. I need to, or please, it's like, I want this to be a really great interactive conversation. When we formally begin, I'll tell you a little bit about my route to being in kind of the space industry, which is even still sometimes interesting for me to say out loud. So I'm not sure what your personal aspirations are, but I will tell you, if I can find a seat at the table, you guys surely can, and potentially innovate even something nobody's even thought of yet. But we'll wait a couple more minutes before we begin. But thank you again for letting me be here. Now, how do I say hello if I'm in your country?
Hola.
I figured hola, but I didn't know if there was some other like special, every country is kind of different. It's like they all have their special things that they say or do, or if you think of something, I always love taking that back to my students. You've got something. What do you have?
Yeah, something more informal is e aí.
Yay?
E
Yay?
aí? E aí?
Hey.
It's like
Hey.
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like what's up or hi or something like that.
Or
Hey.
e aí,
Yeah.
carinhas? It's cool. E aí, carinhas?
Yeah, it's cool.
E aí,
in
carinha?
Tennessee,
Very
it's just-
cool.
say it again.
It's very cool.
Very cool.
All the people love this expression.
Only in the city that he lives.
Oh, marvelous. Marvelous. Well,
Okay.
again, like I said, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. So there is also this howdy, it's ridiculous. It's kind of like super old school Southern.
Nice.
So, yeah. Indeed.
I'm gonna use that.
There you do. Yeah. People in Toronto will go, have you been to Nashville, or are you speaking mini?
Yeah. I'm doing that. Okay, okay. I think you can start it.
Okay, beautiful.
Janet, welcome to Data 8. Every month, Data 8 company invite relevant people to talk about their career, their perspective about technology, science in life. So today I would like to start hearing from you about your career, and how did Janet plan and explore Mars starts, and why?
All right. So thank you guys. My name is Janet Ivey. And so I'm always, it's always interesting to me when people go, how did you get here? Well, I need to go back literally to when I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old, and there was an amazing teacher named Miss Ernestine Yarborough. She brought a telescope to the school on a Friday night, and then all of a sudden, I see her and this other very cool lady. They had bell-bottom pants on. It was the 1970s. And these two amazing females are showing me the rings of Saturn. They're showing me the Pleiades and other constellations and planets. And I was hooked on space in that moment. And the neat thing is, along the way, I was always encouraged in my science, but I also love to perform. I love my music. I love being in the band. I love drama. So by the time I get to high school, I've got as many humanity classes as I do my math and science, chemistry, and physics classes. So I had this very, it's like sometimes I think we've done a big disservice. I don't know how many of you are artists or musicians, or, if you are, I just want to encourage you that there is this real intersection. I haven't met anybody anywhere in the space industry, whether it's Chris Hadfield, who's a guitar player, who's a pilot, astronaut, and he's a musician, and he's a graphic artist. There's Katie Coleman, who played the flute on the International Space Station. She's also an astronaut, a biologist, a scientist. So you have I think too often we think when we're going through the educational process is that we have to be one thing or the other. You're artsy, you're over here. You're brain, you're over here. We don't always allow people to have that intersection of those ideas. So I think it could have gone either way when I went off to college, but my bachelor's degree is not in astrophysics, it's in music and theater. And you probably are going, what? Evandro asked who to talk with us? This crazy lady who's an actress? What do you mean, Evandro? I thought this was going to be serious science here today. But all along the way, I kept taking physics classes. I kept taking astronomy classes. I really was interested. And there was a point after college that I'm performing that I had this moment, an epiphany, where I realized I love performing. I love communicating things. And I really love performing with and for kids and students. But when I looked around, the only people communicating science in the late 90s happened to be Bill Nye the Science Guy. And there was an American show called Beakman's World. And I was like, where are the females touting science? And truthfully, there weren't any. And so I was like, I will plant my flag there. So out of that moment, Janet's Planet was birthed, this idea that it's like, hey, it's cool that my name Janet rhymes with planet. Let's go with that. And we'll communicate science and space to kids, and we'll start there. So I eventually, the door at public television, you guys may have something very similar in Brazil. It's sort of like the educational TV broadcast for America. So I got on there, I'm doing, my shows and my little spots and interstitials there. And then along the way, I was trying to fundraise, and somebody said, you know what you ought to do. I mean, again, this was one of those ridiculous times. I am never afraid to ask the question. If I would say anything to any of you, is that if you're wanting to do something particular in the space industry or in a particular field, write them a LinkedIn note. You never know who will say yes. So I did this back in 2008. And I'd always thought that if I could just meet Richard Branson of Virgin Galactic, surely he would want to fund Janet's Planet. I mean, why not? So I'm ridiculous, right? And I find a guy, like I'm, going through there looking for Virgin Galactic, and I see this guy's name is Richard Godwin. He's the president of something called National Space Society, and he works for Virgin Galactic. It is like, whoa, I'm going to write to this guy. I'm pretty sure it probably sounded like a third grader writing to this guy. Who's like, hi, my name is Janet, and I do this thing called Janet's Planet. And he kindly wrote back and said, hey, if you don't do anything else for your business, you should head to the International Space Development Conference. So off I go. I had produced something super homegrown, this DVD special with a little book all about the solar system. I handed it out to a few people, and then 6 months later, I get this call, and it was from a guy at Space Florida. We saw your DVD. We love how you included and had so many diverse kids in there. We want you to produce a video for Space Florida, but listen to this part. We have a mandate from the Stephen Hawking Foundation to take microgravity to Florida classrooms, and we think you're the person to do the documentary.
Whoa.
Sure. Of course. I mean, all these words in one sentence, right? Stephen Hawking, blah, blah, blah. So I'm literally down in the next month or so filming, flying aboard the 0G plane. And then the very next year, I end up meeting Buzz Aldrin, the second guy on the moon. And he goes, hey, I hear you do science communication. I was like, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, we need more people like you. Okay. And I got invited by, again, how do these things happen? All I can tell you is I kept my vision and focus that what I wanted to do was to do Janet's Planet. I wanted to communicate the love of space and science. And I kept going that way. So Buzz asked me to be part of his Share Science ambassador. And then another year or so later, I ended up, a friend of mine right there in Toronto, you need to know her, Evandro, if you don't, her name is Fernaz Gadaki, and she has worked a lot with the Canadian Space Agency. So she and I had met, I suppose maybe she and I had met in 2011. She loved what I did with Janet's Planet. So in 2012, she's on a panel about education at the Human to Mars Summit, which is the conference that Explore Mars normally puts together. And she says, hey, Janet, if you don't mind, you should come. I'm going to mention all that you do. They want to know about all the different education things that are out there. And I was like, Fernaz? And she goes, no, why don't you fly up? So that was 2012. I looked around, and while Explore Mars was doing amazing things, I'm thinking, you still have to prepare those K through 12 students. Elsewise, by the time they graduate from high school and they're going into college, they may not know that there is this pipeline of science and STEM talent that could be filled by them, but they just have no access to it. So again, I will tell you this, There is no magic in what I do. No one's going to ask me to write the MBA program for this, but I can tell you that I just would volunteer, and I was always trying to increase my sphere of influence. I will say yes to just about anybody and go, I don't know that, I don't know who you need to talk to, but I bet I know somebody who knows somebody that you could talk to. So I try to be yes. So I ended up going up and meeting Chris Carberry, the CEO of Explore Mars, and the president of Explore Mars at that time, Artemis Westenberg, and just said, hey, I know, this year's concluding, but, next year, if you want to do something and expand some of your educational outreach, I'd be happy to head that up. And all I can tell you is that's how it's happened. I have shown up, I've kind of risked and sent some probably audacious introduction emails, and then just kept saying, sure, I can do that. Let me give it a try. And in 2019, Artemis Westenberg called, and if you've ever had a chance to meet her, you really should sometime have a chance to hear her speak. She's quite remarkable. She called me and said, hey, I'm going to start Explore Mars Europe. I'd like for you to take over being president of Explore Mars Inc. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm up to the task. And so here I sit in 2021. We kind of had our best year ever in 2019 as far as Explore Mars went. All of a sudden I was catapulted and had some influence that, although Janet's Planet had afforded me quite a bit, being the president of Explore Mars gave me even more access to space luminaries and space experts. And so we were gearing up. 2019 ended on a fine note. So we are gearing up in 2020. We've got all these plans for in-person education. I'm going to start flying all over the country. Enter 2020. And so I remember this conversation that we were having back in 2020 when we were going, the possibility of meeting in person was just slipping. You could see it evaporating. One of our biggest fundraisers is that H2M conference. So we were batting around ideas about how are we going to make money because it's a nonprofit, et cetera. And I said, we got to offer this stuff for free, because what we do right now, we will be remembered for quite some time. And I said, we can offer Eventbrite, and eventually we can say give at whatever level you feel comfortable. But I said, for right now, I said, because I had anything that I was doing professionally, touring, space camps, any of my speaking engagements had all disappeared from the calendar. So I wasn't even sure how I was going to how I was going to turn a profit or what my model was going to be for Janet's Planet at that time. So Explore Mars started offering webinars virtually. Janet's Planet started going, hey kids, why don't you meet me online? And we'll talk about space. And the first day, and again, this is before you knew not to share your Zoom meeting publicly. It was complete naivete. We had 26 kids the first day, 76 showed up the second day. And then I started inviting astronauts and every person you could imagine to speak to the kids. And again, it was kind of it was my salvation at that time, because I needed a reason to get up in those early days of the pandemic when everything's locked down and I don't know where money's going to come from. And what turned out, it's we served over 1,200 kids in 9 weeks. NASA came knocking and said, hey, we really liked what you were doing virtually, and we think that this virtual thing is going to go on. Why don't you apply for this grant? And I was like, I'm there. And again, in a beautiful way, I was a recipient of a small portion of that grant, which kept me going. And we sort of developed the Janet's Planet Online Astronaut Academy. So I tell you this very, very long-winded explanation. it's like, if anybody ever tells you, oh, I started out at point A and went directly to point B, God bless you if that is your story. Mine tends to be a bit like, oh, I kind of went this direction, around the mulberry bush, zigzag back and forth, slid down the hill, and then it was like climbed it up again and arrived. And again, I guess that's what I really want to share with you guys this morning. If you can make me co-host, Evandro, I just want to share some ideas about, if you're thinking about, let's see if there, I don't know if there are any chat questions there, and I'll check those out. But I want to talk to you about, there are amazing, genius things. It's like, by Sunday, it's like we'll have the Wright brothers moment on Mars. It is carrying a piece of Flyer 1, Ingenuity, the helicopter. It's a piece of the Wright brothers plane. They flew in on December 17th, 1903. It's attached by a little bit of wire sitting right underneath the solar panels. And so you have this beautiful arc of like the first attempts at flight and aerial mobility here on Earth that is going to potentially prove that aerial mobility is possible on Mars. And at that point, drone scouts can go, oh, when humans get here, nope, I wouldn't go there. Nope, this is great. I see some good stuff over here. And even when you know that it's like the Perseverance rover landed within 3 meters of its designated target. And we're talking about an engineering marvel, a scientific mathematical equation that was the trajectory. Because again, think of it, I don't know how many of you might be football players, but you don't aim for where Mars is when you blast off. You're like the quarterback that's aiming for the wide receiver, but you don't aim for him on the scrimmage line. You aim for where he is downfield. So to land within 3 meters of its designated target, and then to know that you can trace it all the way back to Katherine Johnson, one of the particular, figures in that movie and book, Hidden Figures, and you're going, they're using her math, the math of a human computer, her brain. They're using some of the trajectory equations she came up for in the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo program. So you realize that anything we do is all scaffolding. We're always building on the shoulders of giants who have come before. And now it's your turn. And it's your turn to create these moments. Could I be co-host, my dears?
Yeah, I think you can. Arthur?
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm not the host of this today.
Oh, let's see. I was going to share my screen and show you some slides if I can.
Celso, you are the host?
If you go to those little 3 blue dots and make me, oh, perfect. All right, perfection. All right. And again, it's like you guys are incredibly bright, intelligent, amazing people. I just want to, if I can encourage you guys, it's like reach out to people. I recognize that between countries and things, there's DARPA and other differing things. But I think what we're beginning to see, it's like with the Hope probe from the United Arab Emirates, their space agency has literally, let me see, it looks like I might need to admit somebody here. So if I could stop my share and do that. But it's like they are literally, like it came online within 6 years, and now they've got a Mars orbiter. And it's like, when they were trying for orbital insertion, they'd never done that before. So I think what you're going to see in your lifetime in the next 20 and 30 years and beyond is you're going to see this amazing, and this is at least my hope, and it may be too a bit of it may be a naive hope, but I really believe that you're going to see, we're going to have, the only way that we're ever going to get humans to Mars is going to be with commercial, private, and global participation and collaboration. No one country can possibly do some of these audacious things. And whether we're going back to the moon, to live, to work, the gateway, all of those things, whether you go, you know what, why are we even worrying about going down and creating, systems on the ground when we could create multiple space stations, you know, encircling the moon, encircling Mars, and then just take jaunts of discovery down. So, but think of this, it's like most people go, oh, do I need to be an astronaut? Of course not. But get this, my friend, Dr. Cyan Proctor, I don't know if you watched any of that Inspiration 4, that first ever civilian space crew that SpaceX, I mean, normally for NASA, they take anywhere, you could become an astronaut candidate and it might be 10 years before you ever get a flight. SpaceX has chosen 4 civilians, 4 very capable civilians. My friend, Dr. Cyan Proctor, was, she was a NASA candidate and got down to the top 47 back in 2009. But now you don't even need necessarily to be a NASA candidate. You could become a civilian astronaut, and potentially a civilian astronaut with multiple missions to space. They are slated to fly. Inspiration 4 will fly, I believe, sometime. The window is middle of September to middle of October of 2021. So again, you don't only need to be an astronaut. So I was just thinking about 3 careers that aren't normally associated with the space industry. And a book that I would highly recommend you guys pick up is by Robert Jacobson, who, let me see, are you guys seeing that? It was weird for a minute. I don't know what happened to my Zoom. Sometimes will do this. It's called Space is Open for Business. Order it on Amazon. It's fantastic because it's laying out a framework for what is going to be happening in the space industry in the next 100 years. The amazing possibilities for space entrepreneurship, space business. And so if you're a designer, I mean, again, you got to admit, the SpaceX astronaut suit, much cooler than the big bulky orange one that NASA's had for years, right? So it might be you know, designing it. You could be the seamstress, you could engineer it, you could be the machinist for it. You could have, you know, be the procurement and manufacturing company that's making these things. You might be the company like a Paragon in the US that is working on, you know, human life support systems and human landing systems that, again, they're all working, Paragon specifically working on how do we keep humans alive and what do they need. So here in the US, it's like we need millions, and I mean millions of STEM jobs are available, and the US, I mean, we don't have all the talent we need for it. So it's crazy. So I love this graphic because you can sit there and think about it. And so again, I didn't have my undergrad, my master's is in STEAM education. And STEAM is just all of the science, technology, engineering, and math with the added A in there for art. But, you know, it's like, you know, you could kind of trace yourself down in this graphic over here. Maybe you become a writer. Everybody needs a good science communicator, and maybe that's you for Brazil. Maybe you are going to be that first Brazilian astronaut. Maybe you're going to be that first person who creates, you know, some tech that is so great that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and everybody, you know, any other billionaire out there is like, hey, we want to buy that, come aboard and let's all fly to, you know, fly to Titan or Mars or wherever. So there's multiple diverse people working on so many missions. I think there was a moment in time, if you look at pictures, that it looked pretty, what is the word? Yes, pretty opaque.
Janet, sorry, we are not seeing your screen anymore.
Oh, weird. Okay, it keeps doing that. Can you see it now? Yeah. Can you see that now?
Not yet.
Oh, weird. All right. Well, and that weird way that, all right, let me try
All
this.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now
So there
we
was
can see.
yeah, so there was a moment in time where NASA looked pretty, is it Blanca? You know what I mean? And so now you're seeing a lot more diversity, representation, equity kinds of things happening, so that so many differing kinds of thoughts and ideas are there at NASA. Now, I've got friends who are working on this particular module, this is Lockheed Martin. This is their planned human landing system. And you'll see again, you got retro propulsion. It's not that different from if you look back at a picture of, say, an Apollo 11, their lunar lander. But again, you know, there are people figuring out the communication devices on this, the best retro propulsion, the best way to, you know, kind of like configure the astronauts inside, the way that it's like it's going to absorb shock because the moon has no atmosphere. And so like you got a plan for how do we land something, protect humans and get them there safely. We've done it before on the moon. They have some idea of how that can happen. But again, they're building on those, a bit of that old knowledge they have with those Apollo systems. Now, I don't know how many of you love agriculture or love to farm or fresh vegetables. We just were talking with a gal yesterday named Joya Massa that is all about feeding and creating vegetation on the International Space Station. So they've had great success with hydroponics and you know, they basically grow things on cotton. They do kind of nutrient rich water, but guess what? Water bubbles, right? It forms spherical globs in space. So they're experimenting with how to mist and how you don't drench something. And they have been able to harvest lettuce and radishes. They're working on green peppers. They're working on jalapeno peppers, because one of the things that happens in space is that all of your the fluids in your lower extremities float upwards. So you get this big puffy face, your sinuses are kind of blocked, so you don't really have a lot of taste. So basically every astronaut I've ever talked to says their favorite meal is either something that has some kind of spice and really great kind of like, you know, kind of like heat to it, because they're like, oh, I can taste that. So there's another guy named Daniel who's working on ideas of like, okay, farming on Mars. So you create a greenhouse, inside it, you grow plants from which you can also make plant-based plastic. From that plant-based plastic, then you 3D print your next greenhouse. You put inside there plants that you could, you know, create plant-based plastic, and you keep duplicating that until you've got structures and enough greenhouses that you could feed, you know, a group of people on either the moon or Mars. Now, if any of you are artists, again, I want to give you multiple entry points for if you're going, well, I don't, you know, but maybe it's like my friend Tim Gagnon. He's an artist, but he loves space. And one year in the 70s, he showed up and he was like, hey, I'd love to design some astronaut patches. And there he is 40 years later, he's still designing a lot of these commemorative patches and a lot of the things that are very, very ubiquitous with like, oh, I recognize that. So again, when you think about all of the NASA areas there, you've got several in California, JSC down in Texas, you've got one in Alabama, you've got one in Mississippi, you've got one in Florida, a couple in Washington, D.C., you've got one in Cleveland, and again, one there in Maryland, or in Virginia, I mean. So then it's like, and this is stuff, if you guys are really, you know, coders and data driven, I just have to say, I'm not a big fan of the word Space Force. I don't know, just my own personal thing. It's like, because I think that I get that we have to think about how we are going to protect assets, whether it's our satellite, it's our infrastructure, it's the grid, all of those things. I just keep hoping for that 1967 Outer Space Treaty that we will treat space for peaceful purposes, but the industry is craving cybersecurity. I mean, they're even saying that 5G doesn't work so well with 4G, you know, technology or space satellites and or space weather satellites. Let me see, I might have to get out of this to, let me get out of there to let someone in. There you come, and then let me share again. And so, you know, you have these amazing possibilities. So whether it's like, okay, so we put up all these 5G satellites, but then the 3G or 4G weather, satellites that have been up there, if they're not communicating well with one another. My friend Maura Bajah, who's down at the University of Austin, has a program he started called Eyes on the Sky. You guys may have seen it. You can see SpaceX's Starlink. Now they did, at first it was so bright, it was kind of occluding, constellation viewing. So they did dim and put a different kind of material on those satellites. Now, granted, Elon's got a great idea. Let's bring, Wi-Fi, broadband connectivity to every place on the planet. But if you look at some models, the globe, our Earth is surrounded by a bunch of satellites that no longer work. That it's, again, how can you pollute the skies and then still be able to see, and make good measurements on things if it's like so crowded by satellites? So you create, and too many satellites that are defunct and old, you create a lot of space junk up there. So maybe you create this way to, grab those, harness those, put them in a space station where you're literally creating like a way station for, utility kind of like materials that could come in handy someday as people are passing by. There's an idea by Firefly Aerospace to create, like, if the International Space Station doesn't get funded beyond the 2020s, there's some talk that it may only last through 2028, but it's like they have this idea of creating almost like a weird kind of trawler that would pull the International Space Station to an orbit around Phobos or Deimos at Mars. And, again, whether you use it for parts and materials or you use it, as a space station at one of the at one of Mars's moons. So again, there's so many possibilities. And if you happen to be a space artist or a science communicator, or you love film and animation, somebody has to do this when there's a space agency. NASA employs a lot of educators, science communicators, social media folks who push out content. Telemedicine, I don't know how many of you, so if you love data and computers, the day of telemedicine when we can literally, like, via VR. If you haven't taken a look at this website, check out my friend John Hanasek. It's Avatar Medic. Go to that website. He's got some amazing, there's actually on my YouTube channel, we interviewed him for my kids in my Janet's Planet Academy, but he will literally show you that through kind of VR and AR, you could be operated on. And it's like those two, from the surgeon on Earth to a robotic or VR kind of simulation of what you would need to do would be coming to you. It, like, you watch it and you hear him talk about what's possible and you're going, I'm pretty sure I am watching a sci-fi movie. But again, if biology and medicine, because think about this, there are some ethical things we have to sit down and talk about. But if we go to Mars, do we have to have a pacemaker? Because it's like the heart is a muscle just like any of the others. But because it's only 38% of the Earth's gravity, it's like if we don't get enough exercise, or if there's something debilitating that happens, should we have a mechanism that we could literally dial up or down with a phone or a computer? So do we have to become part something else to actually live and work on Mars? So I've heard scientists argue, no, that's interfering with who we are as humans. I've heard other scientists go, no, we have to think about becoming human 2.0 if we're going to live on another planet. So it's like, I love all of these conversations, because I got to tell you, it's like, that's that time where you're going, oh, I don't even know the answer, but I super love how the possibilities and the conversations, again, we have to think also about space law. Check out something called Space Court, and that's SPACECOURT. there's a whole group, and it's like they're going international, I know, and they're designed to sit around and think about what is that manifest? What are those Artemis Accords? Now, I believe at this point, I think it's 12 nations have signed the Artemis Accords, and the gist of them are basically, if we are in space at the same time and the Japanese space agency is in trouble, NASA commits to doing everything within its power to assist, or the Australian Space Agency, the Luxembourg Space Agency, the Ethiopian Space Agency. Yep, they've got one. So, so there are lots of conversations about how do we govern, who owns it? Do we even have the right to put our stamp in exploration? It was like, well, we own this, I got it first, which again sounds like the Wild West, and not at all how we should be good ambassadors of other places. Now, we all recognize that wherever we go, we are yet still humans. So be thinking of that. Maybe you become a lawyer, a space lawyer. There's the new president of the National Space Society. Her name is Dr. Michelle Hanlon. She's in charge of space law at the University of Mississippi, and she's fantastic. So start thinking about, different things. But if you're interested in space exploration and you want to know, oh, I'm an astrobiologist, I want to know, what other forms of life are out there? Are there any biosignatures? Are there any agnostic biosignatures? Things that we have no conception of here on Earth that exist elsewhere. I mean, the discovery of phosphine in the atmosphere of Venus was profound. Phosphine is a biosignature. What the heck is something living in the atmosphere of Venus when we know that it's up to 890 degrees Fahrenheit? That is an inhospitable place. You could not land there. Well, the Russians have landed some things there, but they only lasted about 110 minutes. Maybe you're an aerospace engineer. Maybe you're an astrophysicist. Maybe you're a software developer. You could be working on spacecraft, satellites. Again, everything has to be programmed. And in the world in the next 10 years, IBM, I know the chief technologist there, he promises me, Janet, quantum computing, that'll be your reality. So again, it's like you're a geologist, and it's like you love to know what things are made of and what those fossils are and how old these rocks are. There's satellite engineers. I'm telling you, there's going to have to be some major movement, and that's what Eyes on the Skies is all about, to figure out a way to triage the defunct satellites, and then to create space so that there's not so much junk up there that isn't helping anyone, and especially not our skies. So researchers, astronomers, electrical engineers, 3D printing. I mean, it's like, we know that they've 3D printed the first space tool. There are now machines that can 3D print a pizza within less than a minute. There are companies in Australia that are taking old clothes and basically, and any other kinds of plastic, and turning that into a weird monofilament or a weird filament that also goes into a 3D printer. So there's this whole idea, if you go to space, how can you be thinking about how to reuse and recycle every single thing so that you in no way leave any trash behind? So there are some ideas. There's like Clyde Space and Airbus space perspectives. Now, the cool thing is, I am actually a second round citizen astronaut candidate for Space for Humanity, and the possibility Space Perspectives is basically like this very large balloon that would go up to the edge of space. It would take about 2 hours to float up to the edge of space. We'd spend a couple of hours, it would be a piloted balloon, a couple of hours up there, and then to take a couple of hours to descend. And boy, oh boy, am I crossing my fingers that that could ever be a reality. Virgin Galactic last fall, in the middle of a pandemic, you saw them launch the first kind of like rocket in the middle of flight. So there's And I don't know how many of you ever like a good cold brew,
Oh.
but they are taking things. It's like there are companies thinking about how can we have microbreweries on the moon. What happens is that sometimes it's like microgravity is not that kind on anything. So far, it's like I know there have been Ardbeg, which is a Scotch company, sent some Scotch up to the International Space Station. Apparently, it came back and it didn't taste. It tasted worse after microgravity. But again, who knows? There's also a company called LifeShip. I have sent my saliva to this company. You basically, and it's like, again, they actually sent me a complimentary one. Elsewise, it would have cost me $99. But it's basically, they are taking your DNA, they're imprinting it in this little kind of capsule, and it's as if kind of will be the Wikipedia of DNA for planet Earth. Now, granted, it's a kind of like the gift that you go, my DNA is on the moon. Well, truly, probably our DNA is sprinkled out throughout the universe, because the carbon in carbon in our bodies, the iron in our teeth, the iron in our blood are the very same elements that exist in the hearts of stars. But it's a cool thing to tell your grandkids, hey kids, Jan's DNA is on the moon, and they don't know quite what to do with that. There's this is a couple of books you might be interested in. Space is Open for Business by Robert Jacobson, a dear friend of mine, and then Chris Carberry, who was the founder of Explore Mars. And I think, Evandro, I wasn't around when it was founded in 2010, but the biggest idea is they wanted a space advocacy group that was advocating for human footprints on the red planet and human exploration. Rovers are great. I mean, think about it. Mars is the only planet in our solar system that we know of that is completely occupied by robots. But, you know, when you think about how far they can travel at any given time over a length of time, a human could walk that 5 or 10 miles in a couple of days. So those are some book recommendations for you. But, you know, you've got solar space, solar panels, you know, solar capture technologies. One day, it's like, I believe, and I remember reading this story years ago, I hope it's still true, that Brazil is energy independent. Bravo and well done. Not the case in my country. But whether you think about, we could harness some of that solar-based and sun power and bring that energy source down. And it's like, I think that the company is, well, it's photovoltaics. I'm not sure. It's like Solar Capture Technologies is the name of this particular company. There's also Dr. Sheila Kanani. She's at the Royal Astronomical Society. And so again, she loves to share outreach in space. There's Meals for Mars. This is my friend, Dr. Cyan Proctor, who got the seat that she earned on that SpaceX flight is called Prosperity, but she's been an analog astronaut, and she'd already created a cookbook thinking about, do we have to be vegan or vegetarian to go when we go to Mars? I mean, it's not like we can pack along animals or things like that, but there might be ways to graft and grow like some kinds of like meat proteins and things on the plants. So it's fascinating the things that can happen. So filmmakers, storytellers, VO artists, science communicators, check this out.
This was once just a dream. Two. Mission and liftoff of Discovery and a team of explorers shaping their destiny. An answer built by those who dared to ask, what if we were to channel humanity's knowledge and creativity into something truly revolutionary? What if we built a bridge between and above all nations? To jointly discover the galaxy's great unknowns, to endeavor to live and to work outside our planet for the benefit of all within. What started as an accord between two former rivals became a beacon of opportunity for the rest of the world.
We have ignition and liftoff of the Soyuz rocket, beginning the first expedition to the International Space Station and setting the stage for permanent human presence in space.
We live this dream aboard the International Space Station.
Understand it's good to have you there and adjusting to your new home.
Adapting to life in space. It's been a process.
For the past 20 years, over 230 astronauts from all over the world have worked tirelessly together, boldly performing pioneering research and high-stakes spacewalks in the unforgiving environment of space. In this unparalleled orbital laboratory, circling the planet at 17,500 miles an hour, thousands of groundbreaking scientific experiments from over 100 countries have led to discoveries unachievable in the confines of Earth. From 250 miles up, an unbroken chain of residents have shared their view and their research with a generation eager to understand this higher plane. The space station is a symbol of humanity at its best, a shining example of international peace and collaboration in action.
3, 2, 1. Endeavour, this is Houston. You've completed a historic ride to the ISS and have opened up a new chapter in human space exploration.
And as we turn our gaze outward still, this International Space Station is a living testament of our collective strength and perseverance, where our human curiosity prepares for the audacious efforts ahead. We continue to bridge the distances between us and prove just how much more is possible when we dream together.
So beautiful and lovely, and somebody's got to also concept that. So atmospheric chemist, space meteorologist, materials engineer, farmer, culinary chef, spacesuit fashion designer, any of these things are possible. And so again, I'll close out my slides and everything today, and thank you for listening. But I just want to encourage you that it's like, wherever you are, whatever you want to do, there's never been a better time to connect with the space industry, whether it's in the United States or you create your own and you do amazing things and you create collaborative bridges in between things. I'd invite you all. Explore Mars has something called Mars Innovation Forum that's coming up May 25th through 27th. If you go to exploremars.org, I'll put that in the chat. That will be happening. You'll hear from lots and lots of space experts. I think it's September 7th through 9th is the Humans to Mars Summit. Another one, it's like ISDC. You'll find that one is offered by the National Space Society. I actually serve also on the Board of Governors for the National Space Society. So I'm just telling you, if they will say yes to me, they can indeed say yes to you. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, sure. Arthur?
Yeah, well, Janet, currently, what an agent and space agency can do in Mars, but what is allowed and what is forbidden?
So that's a great question. Right now, it's like, even with the rovers, one of the reasons Curiosity couldn't go over this particular landscape is that it's like it sort of encountered a bit of an ancient riverbed and stream, and Planetary Protection Officer said, nope, you can't travel there. What if you just, we don't yet know if somehow microbial life exists there, so we don't have the right to go and cross that. So I think that it's not that we don't have the rockets to get humans there. We don't have the landing system. So that's a big, so that's yet to be seen and how we're going to do that. The biggest things are, I think the biggest question is, and I would pose this to you, do we have the right as humans to go to other places and create these outposts or cities on Mars? Or, I mean, you know, whether we go, you know, the US kind of set an audacious goal for 2024. I think returning to the moon is probably now more like 2026 or 2028. But yeah, it's like when we go, will some of these things be reusable? If not, we're leaving behind all of those lunar landing, human landing systems. So what happens to that? Same thing, it's like even on Mars with the recent landing of Perseverance, you've got a parachute laying out there somewhere on the landscape of Mars. You've got a heat shield that was just discarded and is somewhere on the surface of Mars. So you go, that's the only way we can get there, and it's the only way we can explore. Is there any plan to like, hey, maybe we should go grab these things that we dirtied the planet up with? So right now they mainly protect some of those ancient riverbeds, but the real question is, you've seen those things. It's like, buy your certificate or buy land on Mars, and that stuff is like, it's a cute, holiday gift, but it's not valid. And so there's a lot to be debated, decided, and some kind of like real Martian laws or space laws that govern how, when, and where humans can interact and what they can't interact with. So there's still long-going conversations, but the least fun person at your space party is usually planetary protection, because they're like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. So yeah, it's a crazy question, because you also have to think about, what do you do with human waste? How much can you recycle of that? How do you make any, water? It's so many things that we have to think about, how we don't leave a terrible trace of humanity on another planet.
Okay, and Eduardo has a question for you.
Okay.
And my name is Eduardo. I'm from São João del Rei. It's a small town in the center of Brazil. I have been loving space since I was a child, and I have a lot of spaceship miniatures. So it's a great moment to meet you now for me. And
thank you.
As a professor, I really want to understand how university and institutions like artificial intelligence could contribute with your mission on Mars Explorer organization.
We would love to have you. Here's one of the things. We would love for you to take some of our videos and then translate them into your language, because we realize that is a barrier. We've got someone from Mexico that's beginning to do that. We could certainly make available. If you go to, make sure that on YouTube, let me find the link. There are two Explore Mars. One is us and one is not. So let me put that link there. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure I have the right. All right, here we go. Here's the channel here. But yeah, we'd love to have your students be involved. Students actually can attend these events for free. So all you would have to do is just reach out to me. My email is this right here, and say, hey, I've got this many university students who want to attend the Mars Innovation Forum or Human to Mars, and we can make that happen. And then it would be fantastic to have you translate some of this material for your students, for you guys to kind of be the proclaimed science communicators of Mars and Janet's planet. I mean, you guys are working on the collegiate level. So many times it's like where my personal passion ends up being kind of like in that K-12 audience, and giving them experiences that keep them engaged so that science is where they want to head when they are in college. But, we've got multiple opportunities for, I just had a thought. There's another company I'm working with. We are potentially going to the country of Jordan and trying to think about if we can start like a space academy there. Mainly because I've never been there, but apparently it does look a lot like Mars. But maybe there's some time, like, for example, Pakistan at the first weekend of June is doing kind of the first ever Explore Mars Pakistan. And so they will be, you know, doing most things in their language, and then that we will kind of like provide speakers to their thing. It's just 2 days. And of course, I mean, I don't have, what time is it in Brazil right now?
3, almost
30
4 p.m.
Okay, so there's like, it's almost 2 p.m. here, so there's not a big time difference here. But when you're in Pakistan, there's like nearly an 11 or 12 hour difference of time. So we're doing some early morning things because that's their early evening. We're doing some things like super late, 8, 9, 10 p.m. US, and then that's morning for them. But you know, we are providing speakers. We're talking about Mars. We're talking about, you know, the future of human exploration on the red planet. So what if we created that Evandro with you guys and created a, you know, Explore Mars Brazil, and we find a weekend, and maybe there's, you know, and again, the great thing is that what I have found, and I hope this to be true for all of you, is that once you find people in the space industry that know that you care and love about it as much as they do, it's like you're invited to the secret party. Like, hey, you love it too, come on in. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I can't tell you the amazing people that I've got their phone number or their email address, or, oh, we need an astronaut. And yesterday somebody calls and was like, oh, don't worry about it. I've got Charlie Bolden. He'll do it in a heartbeat. And just and then there's like probably who your audience might love to hear from is astronaut Jose Hernandez, who's really super accessible. I'm working with somebody at NASA Goddard who's their diversity and inclusion officer. And he's like, yeah, if you ever need Jose, I can get him to speak to a crowd for you. So use us as this resource. Evandro, again, you guys now have my email address, but if there's a way that, you know, we're a little busy with the end of the, you know, with the Mars Innovation Forum coming up that last weekend in May, and then Explore Mars Pakistan, but we could look at the summer or early fall, or whenever is a good time for you and your students to do an Explore Mars Brazil. Or if you say, hey, do you have any documents? Do you have any newsletters that you want translated? Let us do that, because that's certainly, you know, that's something we don't have and would be really, really beneficial. Yeah, Explore Mars Brazil. That'd be amazing.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, I know that I could stay on here and probably drive you bonkers with all of this, my stuff, but I have students to go and teach, and these ones are 6th to 8th graders, a much tougher crowd. So, so I will bid you guys all a good day, but I think whether you're teaching or inspiring a generation of science and space lovers, whether you want to find your way into the space industry, I think basically it's like, if whatever future you see or would love to see for yourself, you really are in the captain's seat of your own rocket. Design it, create it, and then go, you know, kind of like figure out where you want to go, innovate, and yeah, in the end, you will create that future that you are currently dreaming about. Guys, thank you so much. I had kidded earlier with some folks. This is my new social distancing wave goodbye, live long and prosper from Star Trek. So
thank you so much, Janet.
Janet,
ciao,
please.
everybody. Have a beautiful day.
Was
Bye-bye.
amazing.
For you too.
What was that
Thank
word?
you, Janet.
What was it? Yeah, no, I didn't.
Janet, before you leave, please make me host again.
Oh,
You are the host show.
yeah, Evandro, you make you host. All right, perfect. All right.
Okay.
Hey guys, ciao.
Bye, Janet.
Have a great day.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye, Janet.
Bye.
Bye, Janet.